This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
Don't you love it when things are both easier and more affordable? Like when the rain washes your car for you. Or like when you save up to 10% by bundling your renters and auto insurance with USAA. Bundle with USAA and start saving. Get a quote today.
I've been thinking about it while we've been talking, and I'm going to go for the eating task with Mannequin Picks. Purely for the line where he first brings out the ox, and then he brings out the cow. It is not as tasty, but so much more tender. And then he goes, and the views, because to break up the family, that is not good.
I forgot that bit. That's really funny.
And brings out the elephant at the end.
Where he has the mountain of caviar. Yeah. And then we go to the toast, and now the camel.
Hey everybody, and welcome to this episode of Flixwatcher podcast. We're going to be talking about the 12 Tasks of Asterix with Felix.
Hey!
Tom.
Hello.
And Helen.
Woo!
Thank you.
Thank you, as always, to the mighty people for their mighty, mighty tunes. And thanks to Ben from Rockwood Audio for his awesome editing skills.
Please do remember to write a review and rate us on Apple Podcasts, anywhere you can do where you listen to the podcast, because it really does help us.
And you can join in the conversation with us on Twitter
at FlixWatcherPod and on Instagram
at Flixwatcher. Hello and welcome to this episode of Flixwatcher podcast. Today we are very, very, very happy to welcome back Felix and Tom. If you would like to say hello to our listeners and tell them a little bit about the pod work you do, please.
The pod work. Well, our biggest podwork is our shared one, which is Wooden Overcoats. We are both in it. I also write an episode, a series of it, roughly speaking. And also you can hear me in my own solo sketch comedy podcast, Crowley Time, which I release.
Was our German electro band, wasn't it?
Podwerk. Ich liebe das Podcast.
Is that where there's like four of you in a line and you only press one button on the synthesizer?
That's right. Yeah. We're just like that. Podwerk. Yeah.
I love Kraftwerk.
They're good, aren't they?
They're doing a 3D, as we record this, they're doing like a 3D show somewhere. I think it's Ali Pali.
What?
Oh, really?
Surely all their shows are 3D.
Get them on!
Well, yeah. Come on, guys.
Kraftwerk, if you're listening.
They don't do podcasts, do they?
Don't they?
We only invite podcasters on.
As bands go, only gorillas do 2D gigs.
Kraftwerk, if you're listening and doing a podcast, come on to Flixwatcher. You'd have a lovely time. They would.
Have you seen Captain Marvel?
I don't think great. No, but they don't talk like a Kraftwerk song.
Yeah, they do. All the time. And they're constantly playing the synthesizer.
She's a model. Who are you?
My name is Felix Trench, and my podwerk is the same as Tom, but different. I do Wooden Overcoats with Tom, and I do a EU mockumentary podcast called Quid Pro Euro.
Which is extremely funny.
Yes.
Oh, thanks, Tom.
And you're doing it, I guess, are you still carrying on post?
The B word?
Yeah, the B word. I think I like that.
Yes. Yes, if anything.
Still pro-Europe.
Defying the B word.
Yeah. Essentially, what I am now is a traitor.
Yeah, a treasonous person.
I am.
You're leading the campaign to rejoin, aren't you, via Just Your Podcast?
I
Your
am.
absurdist comedy podcast.
That's me.
Yep.
You guys are coming up to, as we record this, coming up to season 4 of...
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when this, you might well be, season 4 might well be out by the time this comes out.
Oh.
So do a little plug, and you also do a lot of live shows.
Listen to season 4 of Wooden Overcoats, the final season
The very final season.
The very final season.
Because we despise our listeners and we want to punish them.
Have you got like a narrative arc that finishes on a great ending?
Haven't a clue. I have not read any of the scripts.
I know things. Yeah, it's very exciting. I have had the update. I've written my episode, which takes place quite early in the season, so not many major revelations in it. But I do know that there are going to be, let's just say you're going to find out not everything, but just enough based on many questions you may have had from the first series onwards.
Okay.
And there are going to be a few major revelations for some of the core characters before the series is finished.
Do you have a writer's room for Wooden Overcoats?
We do. It's more of a sort of insubstantial, gaseous writer's room since series 2, I think, because essentially too many of the writers, some of them are based in the United States now.
All right.
We've diversified our portfolio. And in the first 2 seasons, we did manage to get everyone together into a room and sit down and chat. But even in series 2, I remember it was quite a short meeting because too many people had elsewhere to be, going to other writing jobs, talking to other people, having other meetings. Yeah. So most of the conversation happened via email. I think it's fine to spill this tea now that it's season 4 has probably already been recorded.
What tea are you going to quick text me?
David K. Barnes is a drunk. No, I wasn't going to say that. But
Send me an SMS.
All right. David K. Barnes is a drunk. I speak out my texts as I type them. That's one of my quirks.
Yeah.
You're
that person on the tube, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. Instead of having the noises turned on the phone, tick, 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 tick. Instead of that, I just say, "Dear Mum, do we need milk at the house?" Yeah. No. I was just going to say about that we've started. It's really a remote process now. David will have his kind of vague vision for the series, and what he did, certainly with me this season, was ask if I had any ideas I hadn't done yet. And I kind of had 2 vague directions to go in, and he said, "I like the second one." I went, "Great."
Insight there, guys. As you heard it here first.
And he's drunk. He's always drunk. No, he's not.
So, today we're talking about films on Netflix, and we are talking about the 12 Tasks of Asterix. Felix, you chose a film.
Yes.
Can you tell us why you chose it and give us a synopsis in 12 words?
Yes.
Well, try it. 12 words of Asterix.
The 12 Tasks. No, that's not enough.
By Uderzo and Goscinny.
Okay, that'll do it.
I had the 12 Tasks of Asterix in French on VHS when I was a kid, and it was one of those... You know how you have the collection of home VHSs, and those are just the films you know because you've watched them so many times. So I had a couple of 12s, actually. I had 12 Tasks of Asterix. I had 10 Years in Tibet.
Right.
7 years in Tibet.
7 years in Tibet.
Was 10 years the sequel?
That's the sequel.
Was this your parents trying to teach you how to count and you got it's 7.
7. It says 10, Mum. It says 10 in base 7.
Why did they write it in Roman numerals? You can't tell what it says.
So for ages, I thought Brad Pitt just had an Austrian accent.
Wow.
I had King Ralph.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a fantastic film.
Is it good?
Have you done King Ralph yet?
No.
You have to. Do you know the premise?
We don't choose it.
Yeah,
we don't choose it.
You have to add it to Netflix first.
It might be on there.
Maybe.
So the whole royal family dies in a freak photography accident.
Yeah. And John Goodman is like...
he's like the last person. But he's chosen, or like he's guided by Peter O'Toole and Richard Griffiths.
Wow.
It's a really good film, and they do lots of like 1950s rock and roll stuff, yes.
I remember it coming out and just thinking, I like John Goodman, but then when he did Blues Brothers 2000, I didn't think it was good. Anyway, why are you choosing this film? Carry on with this story.
So I had it in the French, and...
Can I add, I also had it in English, the English dub that's on Netflix on VHS as a child.
So explain the French, because people might not know why.
That I have a francophone connection. I grew up and was educated for the first sort of 8 years of my life in French. I grew up in Belgium. And I suppose I must have had a lot of these different cartoons and comics in French because my parents, although I'm British, thought this is a good way for him to learn to spell. So I had like a half and half collection of Asterixes and Tintins, some of them in English, some of them in French. So I knew both names for them, and like later on I kind of got to know the different voices for them. So this has been really interesting for me because this is the first time I've seen 12 Tasks in English, right? With this particular dub. I think we decided this was the only dub that existed.
Oh, okay, so you guys watched it together, didn't you? So
no,
we were talking earlier.
We were speaking earlier. No, we this one we didn't watch together, but... Yeah, no.
So it's pure childhood nostalgia for me.
Sure. Yeah.
It's turned up, and I later learned that it was something of a cult classic, and I was like, "Oh, great! I'm well up for talking about this."
So give us the synopsis in 12 words.
Asterix 12.
Not your synopsis.
No, sorry.
Or in a minute.
The Gauls must prove whether or not they are divine to
Rome.
Caesar.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Or Rome
nice.
would have worked as well, yes.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, yeah, there we go. Helen, what are your thoughts on the 12 Tasks of Asterix?
So I have never watched any Asterix to the point where I thought the little one was actually a child. And I was like, oh.
What you mean
With
to
the
say little one,
moustache.
you mean Asterix?
Well, this is how much I didn't really know. So I was like, oh. I thought
just
it
to be
was a
clear,
child.
when you say the little one, you mean Asterix?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was like, oh, it's not a child.
Not the dog.
Do you know what, though? I could totally see an Asterix comic character who's 6 years old with a massive Gaulish moustache.
I think they actually did that, didn't they? When they flash back to when they're kids.
Does he have a big
I don't think he
moustache?
does, actually. I think I'm misremembering. But yeah, they could do. You never read them as a kid either?
Nope.
Were you a Tintin kid? Did you read any of
Nope.
those? There's all sorts of theories that fly about whether you're an Asterix kid or a Tintin kid and what that means, if anything. I was definitively an Asterix kid.
I was an Asterix kid. I'd never gone with Tintin. So much so when the film came out, I was like, I don't.
Oh, I like both. But I think I'm...
You're Belgian, so you have to like both by law.
Asterix is French and Tintin's Belgian.
Is he? I thought Asterix is also Belgian.
No.
Oh, no, really?
No, Goscinny is also French.
Because they probably lean into the Gallic side of things, don't they?
Yes.
But
maybe.
Franco-Belgian comics is a grouping within the world of
It's a
comics.
big church. Didn't was it Spirou that Asterix appeared in first? And that was, I think, a Belgian publication.
Does he?
Or was it? Or maybe I might be confusing things. I
Spirou
went to the
was definitely
Goscinny
Belgian.
exhibition at the Jewish Museum last year, which is wonderful. And I think that had a big bunch of his involvement with Spirou and various other Belgian comics. But I don't know where he's from.
But what are your thoughts? Sorry, Helen. carry on.
So I guess not having any prior knowledge, this probably isn't going to be my favourite film.
It is a bit of a baffling one because, interestingly, it's the only animated film version of an Asterix book, or at least at the time it was the only one, which wasn't based on one of the comics. It was an original screenplay that the creators wrote together with another guy whose name I forget. But it was it was turned into a picture comic, like still frames from the film were used to make a comic book later. But at the time, it was an original story they'd written, and it's very interesting to watch as someone who grew up like obsessively reading the comics, because there's all sorts of fourth wall breaking and rules of the universe breaking that never happen in the comics. The comics are very like rigidly historically accurate, apart from the jokes and some of the references. But you would never, for example, have them suddenly turn up in a tube, a Paris metro station, as they suddenly do, just for a little meta joke. And there's gods. You see the gods talk. And Asterix is basically a materialist comic. Like, you very rarely have anything of the supernatural turn up. There's superstition, there's religious worship in it, but you'd never see a god or a supernatural creature. But in this film, it's like they went, it's a film, we can do whatever we want, we're millionaires, everyone loves Asterix. So it's a very bad introduction.
It felt quite Monty Python-y as well with that. So maybe that's what they were kind of going for.
Do you think, because for me, I saw cartoons when I was younger. I thought I saw the most recent. I saw the ones that came out in the 80s, or at least were released in the cinema in the 80s. I meant to check whether they actually were like originally came out in the 80s. But they had a lot of the kind of cast and crew of Gaul had northern voices in the English dub.
Yes.
Which kind of
very bizarre.
Lent it towards the Monty Python pastiching.
They're from northern France, so that makes sense to me.
I liked it. I mean, I used to read Asterix. I'm not sure how many. I can't remember at all which comics, which episodes or stories I read. And I remember watching the films as they came out to VHS when I was a kid. But I don't think I've ever seen this one. And when you suggested it, I was like, really? But it's legitimate. People would have loved it as a kid, and I knew you were Belgian, and you would have had that connection. So it was like, let's have a view of it, and it was enjoyable. I thought. I'm not sure how much I'll watch it again, and I think for me, Asterix is more definitely for the younger people, and I think if you have kids in the room, and I think they would quite enjoy it. But I'm not sure how much it holds attention in the world of like Pixar and decent, modern kind of animation.
See, I would say this is more of an old farts film because it's people remembering it when they're young.
But this is like, I think old farts imposing on their child.
Oh yeah, of course. If I had kids, I'd be imposing this all over them.
It has no pathos. If you're comparing it to Pixar, it doesn't have.
There's
an
no
emotional
sentiment.
core. There is, in fact, it barely has stakes. I was thinking about it, watching it. There is one moment where I felt they were in danger, which is when they're climbing the mountain,
Right.
I was like, it's the first time we've had stakes. That, like, I know that you're not going to fall off it, but it feels dangerous.
I think you're right, and that's nicely conveyed. I also think that you've got a point about Monty Python, Helen, because it's like it has that sense of being a sketch show, which is linked by a premise, like all of the sort of sketch comedy films, like Holy Grail and Life of Brian, and there's not many others. Brain Candy by Kids in the Hall, end of list. But yeah, it's got that sense of them going, let's take these characters that we know, and most of the French and European population know, and we'll go on a little tour of them having fun in a new medium, basically. Because I don't know how many other Asterix films have come before.
There were two.
What was the second?
Asterix and Cleopatra. And Asterix, the Gaul, was an unlicensed production.
Was it?
That was done by a Belgian company who just took Asterix the Gaul and turned it into their own thing. And Udal and Goscinny didn't get angry. They watched it. They went, okay, this has happened. We think we can do this better.
Yeah.
And so the next one was Asterix and Cleopatra, and then they did 12 Tasks as an entirely new screenplay.
Yeah. I've never seen Cleopatra, actually. I think it was one of the VHSs that, on the back of the VHS, when you've got the sort of what else you can get, that was one of the ones that we never found. My parents never found it in a shop.
Oh, did they actually try and, did you ask them, did you request?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I said, yes, please. Any Asterix VHSs we can get, please. But, it was harder to get hold of films back then.
We had very few original, as in shop-bought VHSs. I was mainly
taped off the telly.
I
was a religious taper off the telly.
Yeah. We had like hundreds of tapes off the telly, which is great. But then, and we went to the local, it was Rainbow Video, was our closest one.
Nice.
No Blockbuster back in then. But yeah, we rarely actually bought VHSs, which is, I don't know if it's good or bad. I think like Aladdin and Lion King and Little Mermaid, we bought them. Yeah. But apart from that, Ghost as well, that was one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's
a classic VHS film, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how does it compare to the rest of them for yourself?
I haven't seen every Asterix film. I later in life bought a box set of DVDs and started making my way through them. I love 12 Tasks. I think it plays specifically to film and probably wouldn't work as well as a comic strip. Like, they don't really work as films. It doesn't have a clear 3-act structure. It is not. It's well short of the 90 minutes that you would expect. It's like an hour?
It's about, 72 minutes?
72,
Which actually, if you look at some of the classic Disneys, it's more common because animation was so expensive.
How long was Dumbo's? Like less than an hour?
Yeah, especially the early ones. And in the 70s, I think you'd probably expect 90 minutes out of your animated film, I would guess.
But I think there was some scenes where they're in the administration, in the bureau kind of thing. That would be very difficult to convey in the comic as to how tedious it is. And also, I was wondering for kids at that point, how difficult that must have been hard to get across for kids. I think children would have dialed out at that point because they don't understand.
I don't think so. I mean, that's one of the really memorable sequences for me, is that kind of office admin humour that they use. That and...
What about the German kung fu,
German
judo guy?
Not so much.
I still don't quite understand that segment. It's a German man that's obsessed with judo, but yeah, sure. And then he says at the start of his scene, I learned it on my travels in the Far East. And that's the only explanation that you get as to why there's a German kung fu expert.
Yeah, and he's the best.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
Well, I mean, they play as many stereotypes as they can throw in as possible. And clearly at that point, this is 1976, Asterix has a long tradition of silly German characters coming in.
Yes.
Like you had Asterix and the Goths before that. Yeah. So clearly that was an easy go-to after they'd had the Greek and the Persian. Third, they went, what should we do? German. And then the Belgian comes afterwards to be the cook.
Yes. Mannequin Pix.
Which doesn't really work in the English translation because they give him a French accent, whereas in the French version he's got a Belgian accent, and that's why he's like, look, I've invented this thing. They're called wooden chips, but I don't know what to call them.
Yes, frites, yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So what are the names in French for dogmatics, Asterix and Obelix?
Idée fixe, so fixed idea, dogmatics.
Which is a very, very good pun direct translation, actually. And Getafix is panoramics in the Druid Getafix, and Getafix is more of a direct joke about him being, doling out a magic potion, like the village dealer.
So it's even, they still use the suffix fix in the French version.
Yeah, is that sort of historically accurate? That was the most common.
Ix is Gaulish, so Felix is a Gaulish name.
Felix.
It's a Roman slave name.
Who would be the Obelix to your Asterix if we were casting this now? Because I think you'd make a very good Asterix.
I'd make a wonderful Asterix.
Have a think.
Gosh, you.
Oh, really? Great. I need to shave my beard.
I thought that was a big setup there. I think you were slow to the mark there.
Oh, well. If you had to pick, Felix, who would you choose to...
So out of interest, when did they stop making the animations?
They haven't.
They're still going?
They're still going.
The
There was a
animations are.
beautiful looking one from only a couple of years ago, which I think was the Vikings, Asterix and the Vikings, and that was like top draw, two-dimensional Hollywood standard animation. I don't know for how long it was, but it was certainly, I saw it advertised, like the trailer hit YouTube and people were on Twitter, animators and comics artists were sharing it going, look at this. And like,
But
you
they
watch
started
it and you
making
go,
the live actions in the 90s.
They did.
Mission
I think
Cleopatra is
2000s.
2000.
I thought it was,
Hold on. The live action.
Yeah, with Depardieu and what's his name, the small comedian. Depardieu's Obelix, or he was at one point anyway.
And it's all written by Alain Chabat, who plays Caesar in the first one, Mission Cléopâtre.
This is quality material, because this is a deep dive of knowledge. Your listeners are very lucky to have us talking about the minutiae of Asterix. Yeah, here he is. Now, what's the name of it? He's brilliant. He's in every French comedy, basically.
Christian
Clavier, yes, from Les Visiteurs and various other French comedies of, varying quality, but still.
Well, there's a few of these. I genuinely haven't seen it, and I genuinely thought they'd stop making Asterix films, animations in like the 80s.
Look up Asterix and the Vikings, because I'm sure there was a 2010s animated feature made, but it was really the trailer looked incredible.
It's interesting you say that because the style of animation, that very 70s dirty animation.
It's a bit dirty, isn't it? I like that. I think it's lovely. Well, especially because something that it's very hard to capture in animation frames, probably because it's labour intensive, is one thing that's so great about Uderzo's drawing, which is brushstrokes. Here we are. Here we go from 2006. Okay, so it is a while ago, to be fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks lovely.
You're right, it's much
very
smoother.
Disneyfied, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a little Disneyfied. I think it's also, the French
they've got like shadowing and like highlighting on stuff like that. So
exactly, and that's the sort of thing you can do with digital animation.
Because I was watching it properly this time, going through 12 tasks, is the backgrounds. The backgrounds, especially there's the whole sequence when they go to the Island of Pleasure.
Yeah.
It's this very sort of splodgy, watercolour, impressionistic feeling to it. It's beautiful.
The backgrounds are stunning.
As a child, what did you make of the Island of Pleasure? Because I thought that was a bit...
It's pretty raunchy. I think this is an old fart film.
Yeah,
I think
it is racy. It is also more common in French comics.
Saucy stuff.
The equivalent of the Beano for kids, certainly back then, you see tits.
Wow.
To put it bluntly, you see tits.
I grew up in the wrong country. There's a lot less of that sort of prurience, I guess, in French comics, certainly. But no, but it's also very PG rated. There's sort of some cleavage and some like waving the bums around and stuff, but it doesn't seem too dreadfully. Yeah, there's jokes about the name of Caius Tiddlus, the man who's sent to minister to these tasks that have been set to Asterix and Obelix to check that they're fulfilling them properly. His joke where it's like, you can choose any reward you want for fulfilling your tasks so thoroughly, and he just goes, leaves a cloud of dust, and the next thing you see is him on the Island of Pleasure being fed grapes by a busty lady.
With the boar.
With the boar,
which is an important bit.
Yeah, indeed. There's a crucial lack of boar plot point. But it's all sort of quite... to me, it seems a bit... that fits within the family comedy, I'm doing air quotes, family comedy sort of bracket. But again, I would argue it's not aimed at kids. I think this is like a satirical... It's just about kid-friendly attempt at like a satirical sketch animation.
I used to remember reading the comics and really enjoying the feast that they have with the boar.
Oh, yeah.
I was always like super like, I want wild boar. It looks amazing.
He's brilliant at making food look nice.
Yeah. Right, which of the 12 tasks did you enjoy the most? I'll come to you, Helen, because you look startled by the potential question. Tom.
Pressure's on.
I said I'll come to you last.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, to last, I see.
Let me go back.
Which was the best one? It's hard to judge. I mean, my favourite segment of the film, and I think it's one of the tasks in and of itself, is probably the ghost section.
Right.
Which I suddenly remembered was in this film. Because when they get to these marshlands and Caius Tiddlus goes, "You'll be very upset to know that this area is extremely haunted." And I went, this is feeling very familiar. And it has that kind of, weirdly, it looks like one of those, if you see one of those sort of alternative 70s or 80s animated films, which have quite elaborate and complex and often slightly freaky animation, it's like that. And again, it's a supernatural segment in a franchise which doesn't have supernatural segments. And as a kid, having read almost all of the comics, watching that was like, what's this? Ghosts in Asterix? And the animation of it is so just beautifully weird and a bit sinister and genuine and unsettling.
But I think that comes from the fact that they had a very low budget. So this was the first one that used basically photocopying to create the animation, which is why they can get away with lots and lots of Romans all kind of doing the same thing.
Yes.
But those ghosts, they just sort of turn into an amorphous mask. That is an easier thing to animate than lots of ghosts being very ghosty.
And the way it's directed is creepy. It's
there's
very
also
creepy.
that bit when they go into the cave where it gets the eyeballs.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful, actually. I think I might prefer that. It's
but it's
so
also
mad.
such an easy way to speed up animation, isn't it? I mean, that's what you see a lot in Warner Brothers films, where Bugs Bunny goes into a room and you can just see his eyeball, and you know that animators just gone, oh, thank God.
Oh, phew.
Yeah. Cheers, guys. We'll get this out quickly.
Do you know what I love though throughout is the soundtrack. I never
It's
thought it before.
really lovely,
It's so good, and like all the incidental little sounds. I always remember Brutus's knife, where they very clearly just twanged a ruler off the end of a table.
Yeah.
He's there kind of playing with a knife and goes bang,
Yeah.
bang.
What was the name of the bard? I can't remember his name.
Cacophonix in English. But what's he in?
Assurance Tourix.
Assurance Tourix, which
As
is
in-
insurance tours?
No, all risk insurance.
Yes.
All weather insurance.
All-weather insurance. Nice.
Like they've in the French, they're very rarely connected to the actual people.
Yeah.
The pun names in English are very on the nose, like cacophonous.
More
is
so.
like-
Yes, get a fix.
Yeah.
So the
Cacophonix.
woman who translated Asterix for
Fully automatic.
Britain, although I think America has different translations. But
Oh, really?
She died recently, and she got an obituary, and part of the obituary pointed out that she actually didn't want any celebrity. She just wanted to quietly work in the background as. Like, it's a very difficult task.
What kind of celebrity could she have attained had she sought it?
Well, I'll tell you, she was sort of a celebrity name to me growing up, because she was, despite not wanting to be a big name, she was on the title of every English language Asterix book. Sure. And Derek Cockridge, who I think, were they partners or were they just collaborators?
Who's Derek Cockridge?
He's the other one who translated all the Asterix books. Anthea Bell and Derek Cockridge worked, I think, together on all of them. I may be wrong about that, but I know Anthea Bell at least did all of them. I'm sure Derek Cockridge did most of them. But they were the partnership, and one thing they were really praised for was making puns that are French in the script work in the English translation. And they just made sure to, they weren't just translating the words, they were making sure that all the jokes and the spirit those jokes were meant in made it into the translated versions, which is quite,
It's a tough thing to do, isn't it?
and it's a lot of attention for a comic to get in that era.
Yeah.
She came from a linguistic lineage. Her grandfather was... Have you heard of the Loeb classics, Loeb? Loeb
No.
classics. So if you can imagine a set
like Lisa Loeb.
of...
Yes, and Jeff Loeb.
Of Greek and Latin texts that are in plain green and red covers.
Right.
If you've ever seen that, those are like the standard UK editions of Greek and Latin
This
texts.
is ringing
so
a
you
bell.
get like your Seneca or your Plato or whatever.
Right.
And that was Mr. Loeb. And that was her grandfather.
Gosh. Oh, blimey.
So you've gone for the cave task?
I'm going to go for the cave. Do you know what? Because that section where the whole film is is line animation with fill colors. As we were saying, there's not really shading on a lot of it. It's very much like flat color. And then suddenly you get that scene where they're asking someone for directions, but it's not someone. It's these constantly mutating sort of almost like pastel sketches of demon faces that are warping into each other. And it's such a beautiful but a very abstract animation in the middle of, as you say, what is otherwise a very cheap, simple scene of them
which,
in a dark
as you
cave.
said, suddenly becomes the Elysia metro station in Paris.
Yeah.
Which is such... It must be a kind of a 1970s in-joke about the darkness of the Paris metro station.
Or it being hell to be in there or something. Yeah.
Felix.
The bit that sticks in my mind most, I think, is The House That Makes You Crazy, is the admin bit. But I've been thinking about it while we've been talking, and I'm going to go for the eating task with Mannequin Pix, purely
it's so
for
good.
the line where he first brings out the ox, and then he brings out the cow. It is not as tasty, but so much more tender. And then he goes, and the views, because to break up the family, that is not good.
I forgot that bit. That's really funny. Here's a bit. Deep dive question on this one. There's the scene where they're travelling across an invisible wire over a river of crocodiles. There's a bit at the very end of that scene where they've dropped down to where the crocodiles are, and then you see, because they're Asterix and Obelix, they're invincible basically, they just knacker all the crocodiles and send them flying up into the air, where they then cower by gripping this invisible wire over the chasm. And as the scene is leaving, it just leaves it on the crocodiles on the wire, and they say something, and I couldn't for the life of me work out what it was, or they sort of growl something.
Now, I can tell you
that
what they growl is from the original French soundtrack.
Right.
So if someone says something like, body, body, oh, and then someone goes, shh.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Things on the French soundtrack. So clearly they couldn't figure that out, what they were saying in the English.
What to do with it? Interesting.
And there are little bits in the English version, especially towards the end, when all of the villagers are going towards the circus, where if you listen, there's this kind of background hubbub, and you can just hear bits of French in the background.
The walla is French, but the main vocals are English. Yeah, wow.
Sorry, that works. I mean, I'm happy I think that makes sense in a Gallic basis.
Bit of local gear?
Oh, okay, so me last. I think, the food eating tasks made me laugh the most because it was just nonsense.
It's so fun.
Just pure nonsense all the way through, and brings out the elephant at the end.
It's the way he has the mountain of caviar, and then we go to the toast, and now the camel.
And he had a good description for each one of them. But I did laugh. I did enjoy the Insanity House as well, because I had no idea where this is going. I thought it was a bit dry, and then when it just flipped it around, and everyone starts falling like Pied Piper around this like insane house. I thought, that was good.
Yeah, brilliant.
So maybe the hypnotist person who turns the person before into a cat,
and the bird.
Yes, but mainly the cat.
And there's that recurring joke about, did you see the bird is low flying? It means there's going to be no rain.
Yeah.
Well,
presumably that's a saying in French.
We'll have rain. Like cows sitting down. Yeah.
One thing of Asterix, using the word Asterix in film, which really annoys me, is in the film La Haine.
Yes. I have not seen it.
It was a fantastic film. One of Vincent Cassel's first films that he did, set in like a kind of a French slummish part, an deprived part of Paris.
Okay.
And one of the characters is called Asterix, but the translation was Snoopy. And that always used to really piss me off, because obviously it's kind of translated for an American audience.
Yes.
Right.
And I just think, but you hear him say Asterix, but then you see Snoopy, and like, that makes no sense.
No.
I think Asterix is a word you can just put that in the name.
But also surely Asterix is a global enough brand that you would think use that in America.
You would think, yeah. So just to get, because I haven't seen it either, is the context that he's meant to be like a cute little cartoon guy or something?
I can't remember which character is called Asterix. I can't remember which character is called that, but it's just a recurring theme through the film.
So who plays him?
That's what I mean. I can't remember which character.
Okay.
I don't think it's Vincent Cassel.
No.
But that's irrelevant. It's like the name, they clearly say, albeit in French, Asterix, but then Snoopy. No. It's not called Snoopy. It's
terribly distracting for an English audience as well, who'll definitely know what Asterix
I think a lot of people don't, well, hopefully with things like Parasite, more and more people start seeing, jumping over that 1-inch hurdle, which I think is such a great phrase.
Well, I've seen it, and that never caused me any problems.
Well, you maybe didn't notice it then. Maybe didn't occur to you as like a...
But as we've established, you weren't very familiar with Asterix growing up. So. Back to the hypnotist scene. I like that bit as well, and you just reminded me. There's something I love about, you see it a lot in TV animation in the 90s, like Animaniacs, Batman, Freakazoid, and also a lot in sort of...
I guess Danger Mouse.
Danger Mouse maybe as well. Actually, Danger Mouse is fairly consistent, but certainly in European and American animation, the way they'll divvy up making the film is often you'll have an animation director or storyboard artist or lead animator who's taking on different scenes. So occasionally, especially when it comes to like the Batman animated series from the 90s, there'll be one episode where everything looks amazing, and that'll be because the director oversaw the style of the animation, and some are a bit sort of workmanlike and not that great. And in this film, it happens between different scenes. So one of the smoothest and most sort of elegant bits of animation is the hypnotist scene. And if you watch it, the character animation is incredibly on model. He doesn't distort at all. And the flow of his movement is incredibly smooth.
You mean the hypnotist?
The hypnotist himself, yeah, and all the other characters in there. And I bet you that's because one of their best animators was put on it. Yeah, and you can see it. You can sort of see it. I mean, it all looks lovely, but some scenes there's maybe a slightly wonky character movement, or maybe some characters seem to warp slightly, off their model.
The most apparent scene for that for me was the German judo guy.
Yeah,
because they just almost had like him like an outline, and then his lips moving separately to the rest of his body.
Yeah, little cheap.
It looks a bit dodgy.
You could quite often see the pencil lines, which I really enjoyed as a thing. But it wasn't crisp lines.
No, and as we were saying before, like the sort of brush strokiness of it, it's like they've inked the animation panels, which never happens. Like you get this very steady line.
I know, but the reason for that, this was because of the photography process, the photocopying process. So you needed these much thicker lines when you're photocopying cells, which is why some of the later Disney animations, like 101 Dalmatians, have very thick lines.
Yeah.
Should we head to the scores?
Sure.
Let's go to the scores.
Hello, I'm Sam Pay.
And I'm Martin Zoltz-Orstwick.
And we are the two hosts of a podcast called Song by Song, where we listen every week to a track by the musical artist Tom Waits. You might know him for his gravelly voice, very nice, his appearance in films, but also his multi-decade spanning career involving blues, jazz, and all sorts of other kinds of experimental music.
So we're basically like a book club for Tom Waits, and if that sounds like your cup of tea, you can find us at songbysongpodcast.com or wherever you get podcasts.
This episode is brought to you by Abercrombie. Build your fits of the day with Abercrombie's newest denim drop. Here's where to start. Abercrombie's 90s straight jean goes with any shirt from tees to sweater polos. Super versatile. Their loose and baggy jeans are more trend forward, so you can grab those and go out with your friends. Abercrombie's denim fits come in a range of washes. Build your looks around Abercrombie denim. Shop online or in-store.
Welcome to the Flixwatcher scoring system. All of your points are out of 5, and you may have decimal places if you wish. And we'll start with you, Felix, please, for your recommendability.
5.
Fair enough. Just because you love it to bits, and
I recommended it.
When was the last time you watched this? Can you remember?
I think within my life as an adult and Londoner, maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Fairly recent then.
So fairly recent. Tom?
I'm going to go for a 4, and I'm only doing that because certainly by today's standards, there are sections of this film which are bona fide racist. And that's hard to get around. Like in the first scene, there's a scene where Asterix goes through every language that Asterix has been translated into, in a sequence which is designed to showcase how international and universally beloved this property is. And he says, konnichiwa, and he says, hello, guten tag, and the flags of the various nations flash up, and he pulls his eyes back to the Japanese.
I didn't notice
when that. I'm glad you didn't.
It's on my notes. Yeah, Japanese, slightly
Japanese
racist.
eyes. That was, it's extremely racist.
Oh, throughout the series, you get very racist portrayals.
Well, I think you get stereotypical satirical portrayals, but not as overt as that.
Do you know what I always find very interesting is people... certainly within European cultures, tend to cite the one where they go to their own country as their favourite. So people in the UK are always talking about how Asterix in Britain is their favourite.
Playing rugby, drinking tea.
But Asterix in Spain, similarly, I think is just as good a comic. Asterix in Belgium is a beautiful comic, which is one of my favourites because I recognise a lot of the stuff in there.
But I think that's what they judge so well, not in the moment where Asterix acts all Japanese, but in the books, they had this sort of... They played off popular perceptions of national stereotypes, and in the British one, everyone's got a stiff upper lip, everyone's drinking tea. But what they prodded at was things that people love to make fun of themselves for, and each book captured those beautifully, maybe in a way that was a lot more 60s and 70s.
But I think also, like at that point, you've got Goscinny D'Urso presumably went through the war. They've created this world which is a fairly thinly veiled parable, I assume, for the French experience under Nazism. You've got the Romans with the Germans in this one pocket of French resistance.
Yes.
So there are all these different groups of people who are shown as in a very kind light.
True.
Which is not the case in Asterix and the Goths, which is one of the few ones where they don't speak the local language.
Right.
Whereas everyone else can kind of speak Gaulish, and they even say in Asterix and the Britons, they were the same as us with some weird customs.
Yes.
But as soon as they go to Germany, they go to prison. Everyone is kind of harsh. Everyone is...
That happens when the writer was, I believe, an Italian Jew who fled Europe because of Nazism and then came back after the war.
Was he?
Goscinny, yeah.
I did not know that.
Where
did he flee to?
America. He was in America for a while. He worked as a cartoonist, I think, and a cartoon writer for various publications in New York, I believe, if I remember the Jewish Museum exhibition correctly, and then came back to Belgium and France to work on comics over there, I think lured back by this boom in comics that was happening. Okay. I'm going to actually upgrade this to a 4.2 to be more fair.
Helen.
So I think this is definitely one for fans coming into it now with no prior knowledge. I just think it might be a bit of a hard sell for a lot of people. So yeah, I'm going to give it a 3. Sort of, I think this is pretty much, if you haven't seen it and you are a fan, then you would need to see it and go for it.
Yeah, a huge caveat here is if you like Asterix, have seen the comic or read the comic books, one of them, any of them. Like for me, I'm not interested in any iteration of Tintin. I think the animation looks bad. And you just kind of forgive something, don't you, if you've enjoyed it in one media? Because the animation here is...
Do you mean the animation of the old Canadian TV version, or do you mean the drawings of the comics?
The animation of the TV versions.
Oh, yeah.
I always think it looked a bit ropey.
I always liked it. I should go back. I've got all of them in a lovely digest format,
They're all on
complete
Netflix.
Collection. Well, I meant the
Tintins,
books,
yeah.
but the whole series is out, isn't it? And I should watch them again.
But I think the one to compare it to is Lake of Sharks, because that was the only Tintin made for film, which was then turned into a comic.
Really? Interesting. Okay. Well, there you go. That's the companion piece. We should have picked that. Netflix should have uploaded it.
Yes, that's a huge caveat, and I'm not sure how many people have. So it's quite interesting. I thought coming into here that Tom maybe read a couple, but you seem to be well genned up on it.
I grew up absolutely adoring it.
Yeah.
My dad's a huge Francophile as well.
Sure.
Heartbroken over Brexit multiple times. I've been on every protest march with him. It's been wonderful.
But you're also very into 20th century comics.
Oh,
and
hugely, yes.
Comic artists and know a lot about that.
That's true. But I also think that a lot of that came from my early experience of Asterix, especially. But also things like the odd Calvin and Hobbes book, The Far Side, all these things.
Those two are my legit favourite things in the entire world. I got the massive kind of compendium, which weighs like 10 kilograms.
The Calvin and Hobbes one?
Yeah, Calvin and Hobbes and the Far Side one.
Oh, I didn't get the Far Side. I've got the Calvin and Hobbes. You can't pick it up. No. I tried to move it to a different shelf. I nearly threw my back out.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. Have you seen them?
No.
Calvin and Hobbes either. Did you read any comics growing up?
Oh my God, not Calvin and Hobbes.
No, not really comics.
They are so delightful.
I was into books where...
la-di-da. No pictures.
where animals lived lives as humans.
Oh, nice.
So
that's Calvin and Hobbes. That's Calvin and Hobbes and the Far Side.
Oh, well,
they're
Far
not
Side...
comics, though. I just didn't do comics. So like The Animals of Farthingwood and the Red War books and things like that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Those kind of things.
The darkest children's media.
Yeah, where the animals die.
Do you remember that scene where, spoilers,
spoilers for
where Mr. Pheasant goes back to the farm to find Mrs. Pheasant and she's cooling on the windowsill?
Oh my God.
I'm going to give this 3.5 because I think there would be huge caveats. Have you seen Asterix? No. Have you read any of the books? No. Okay, well, are you a child? Yes. Okay, well, I'll play for you.
I think it's for old farts. I think you're making a mistake, Kobe.
I think some kids will like it who haven't experienced other media. Repeat score. Felix.
I have repeat viewed, as we've established. I'm not sure that everyone will. I'm going to go for, like, general population. Maybe I'll steal your score there and say 3.5.
Okay.
Nice.
Tom?
I'm going to go for a 4.1.
Yep.
I'm just trying to use my decimal point rights as much as I can.
Sure.
Because I think I would, if you said to me tonight, I watched this 2 nights ago, and if you said to me, would you like to watch that again tonight? I'd go, that's a bit soon. But if you said to me in a week, I genuinely might go, yeah, actually, it's nice to look at. There's lots of fun jokes in it. It's really pretty. It's pretty in its weird 70s way. And I think a 4.1.
It's only 82 minutes.
Exactly. It's only 82 minutes long. That's a very good point.
You could very easily have this on in the background.
I think
you also have this for dinner.
You also think some of the lesser Disney animations are quite poorly animated. I'm not going to bring out any names.
Don't name and shame.
Helen, repeat viewing score.
Oh, it's a 1 from me.
Whoa.
I'm not going to go back. I think I kind of missed the boat on this one. I think it's something that probably you need to have kind of had like a bit of a passion for when you're younger to really get behind on it.
I used to get these, we used to go to the library like every week, and this would be like, there'll be the proper books like The Animals of Fire and Wood, but then there's be the kind of easy ones that I'd get as well, which is quite, I think that's why I got into them. One for us. But I don't think I'm going to see this again. Like I say, I can't remember the stories of any of the Asterix I've read because I've only read them once each, and any of the films I watched, I can't remember which any of them. Was there one like an Olympics one?
Mm-hmm. There was, That's
probably that seems to ring a bell, strike a chord.
We were talking earlier about Asterix and the Big Fight.
Yes,
which I think was a combination of two comics.
Right.
The animated film, which came out when? A little while after this?
1989. That's the one with Bill Oddie.
Quite a bit later, yeah. Bill Oddie as Asterix. Bernard Bresslaw as Obelix in the best move of casting I've ever heard of in my entire life. And various other sort of luminaries of British film and telly through the years in the English dub.
But we were saying in the American dub of Big Fight, Asterix is Henry Winkler.
Which is also brilliant. That's so good. I can't remember who played Obelix in that one.
Don't know.
Anyway, but
that's definitely one I saw, but I can't remember.
It's really good. It's Asterix and the Soothsayer, plus I think there was a comic just called Asterix and the Big Fight, and they combine the plots, and it's a very, very, and it's someone brilliant as Prolix the Soothsayer, and I can't remember who that is, but it's brilliant. Anyway, sorry.
I'm going to go for 1.8 here. Maybe watch it again, can't think when. Small screen score, Felix.
That's whether or not it works on the small screen?
Yes, the more suited it is to the Netflix arena.
Yeah,
to your
I
TV.
think it is more suited to the small screen than the big, because when it first came out for worse screens. And this time I've really noticed, as I was saying, just the brushstrokes, the animation things. I think things that they would have got away with lower definition.
Sure.
So I think that this is a good one for the small screen. I think if you are using it as a kid's film, maybe something to keep them quiet for exactly 82 minutes, then this on an iPad works very well.
Train journey.
Yeah,
perfect,
exactly.
yeah.
In fact, our
82
friend
minutes.
was watching it on her phone on a train journey recently. I'm going to give it... I don't think it's not designed for the small screen, so I won't give it a perfect score. I'll give it...
before you give your score, also you did talk about the soundtrack, which is sometimes a part of the atmosphere that you get, something that is very much augmented in the cinema.
That's true.
So I don't know if you want to...
That's true, and there is an early joke that assumes you're in a cinema.
With the hands up.
Yeah. God, I love that soundtrack. It's just so cheerful.
It is.
And almost, it's quite lo-fi.
Yeah. It doesn't sound like it's very overproduced or done with a huge band.
No, but I don't know. I mean, I watched it with headphones because my laptop speakers are pretty rubbish. I would give it a 4.
Okay. Tom?
Now, this is an important question, which delves right to the very heart of this podcast. Am I reviewing the idea of watching this film because it happens to be on Netflix, or am I reviewing the version that is on Netflix?
Both.
Okay. In which case, it gets a 3 from me.
Right.
Because I think it's a 5 if you're watching a good print. But the print, for some reason, maybe it's the best one that's available.
Yeah.
The print on Netflix is incredibly pixelated and it looks like it's in about 720p.
It's quite interesting because sometimes you hear that the film transfer is a lot better on Netflix than it is on the DVD.
Often it is. Yeah, the Ghibli films that are on there now look incredible.
Right. I'm sure that must have been like a stipulation of it coming on Netflix.
Absolutely.
Like, you're not going to make a shit version, son, of this. You're going
you just swore, Kobe. You're breaking your own rules.
No, you can swear.
Oh, can you?
Yeah.
I thought you said you can't swear.
Oh, no.
I've been holding back from fucking and shitting all bloody since we started.
Well, I mean, that's...
Well, you've gone now.
I know.
Yeah. So, yeah, Helen.
Sorry. On that, I'm going to give it a 5. I think, it's perfectly suited to watching on a small screen, and also sort of going back to what you were saying, Tom, about trying to like collect the VHSs when you were younger. I think this is one of the things that is really great about Netflix is that they've got all of this massive back catalogue, and you don't have to now like dig out your VHSs to kind of relive your nostalgia and go back to things. So if you're an Asterix fan, then check out their back catalogue.
I'm going for 5 as well. I would not want to watch this on the cinema screen. I think this is perfect for being at home. And
it is, isn't it? Yeah.
Engagement score. Felix.
Explain to me the engagement score.
So engagement score, high engagement score is where your phone is in your pocket, but you have no intention of picking it up, nor do you wish to stop what you're doing to go to the toilet or entertain any other distraction.
Very good. I checked my phone a bit in the first half, then I turned my phone over, which is Felix code for stop using your phone, Felix. So I can't say that I was fully engaged throughout, but I was pretty engaged. I wasn't waiting for it to end. So I'm going to give it another solid 4.
Okay, Tom.
I'm going to give this one a 5 because I'll tell you, I watched it with my partner, and she and I were both just constantly referring to a bit of beautiful animation or a really good joke or the music, as Felix has talked about. And so that sketch format for me means that, in the same way as any sort of sketch TV program or a show you might see, a live show, it's always like, well, even if this bit isn't the best bit ever, there'll be another wrong in 2 minutes. Sure. And I think for me, it's also the fact that it's only, 82 minutes? 72? Did we decide? 82. Let's say 82.
82.
Do you know which bit you've just reminded me of talking about the music and animation? The squirrel. The squirrel on the clarinet.
Yeah, on the Island of Pleasure. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. How odd.
Yeah.
Helen.
So I was kind of with it for a bit at the start, and then they do the first one and they complete it really easily. And then they do the second one and they complete it really easily.
Yep.
I can kind of see where this is going.
Yep.
Which was a bit of a shame because, like you said, Felix, there's no stakes and there's no kind of journey, and I think I need that a little bit to keep me engaged. So a 2.
Sure.
Usually I'd be with you on that. I think, again, it's my love of Asterix and Obelix, obviously, but also I think it's that sketch thing where I sort of went, I get what this is. Like, I remembered it from childhood, but then you go, oh, I see. It's 12 sketches in a row, and I sort of locked into that.
Yeah, I think I'm on Helen's side in that I checked out as soon as I saw how easily. You knew exactly.
Yeah, that was it. It was just a bit too easy.
Yeah. But although I did like the gag where it's almost like a Bugs Bunny Roadrunner kind of thing as well, isn't it? Where super fast guy runs off, Asterix is like still speaking to him as he's, oh, you've gone. Oh, I'll just have my potion because it's important. The cat stops him really easily, goes back and gets the flowers, goes back and gets the toadstools, and then crosses the line helping this guy, and this guy's like dejected. And at no point, like I said, are you under any doubt that Asterix and Obelix are not going to win this thing? No.
With the possible exception of The House That Sends You Mad, which probably is one of the more exciting bits, despite it being about being dull.
They get longer.
Yeah.
Maybe the crocodile bit is quite short, but it feels like they save the good ones for the second half.
Yeah, because it builds, I guess.
Yeah, so you do have to think, so what does kind of keep you going is like wondering how they are going to do this, because the first 2 tasks are running and throwing, and they're kind of like, if it's going to be this all the way through, you're like, shot put next, is it? Okay, fine. Which one of you can jump the highest? But it does get at least a bit more interesting in terms of how the tasks that they perform. So I'm going to go for a 3.5 for this. And that gives us an overall score of 3.63125.
Is that good?
Yeah.
That's all right. I think it's
out of 5, I mean, yeah, it's well over half.
It could have tracked lower. I think the trajectory was lower.
Listeners at home can't see this, but Kobe's got about 1 million tabs open in his Chrome.
This is comments on quite often.
Browser.
This is fine, guys.
Yeah. All right.
We just opened up Twitter and we've landed directly on David K. Barnes.
David K. Barnes has just finished writing an episode of Overcoats Wooden, and I'll tell you, thank God, because at the time we're recording this, we've got to record before too long. But thank goodness he's finished writing an episode.
He's got 2 replies and 7 hearts.
Oh, good for him.
Folks, if anyone's looking to increase that heart score for him, it is currently the 21st of February, so do just scroll back through David K. Barnes's
and he sent
at
the
Velvet
tweet
Bars timeline.
At almost exactly 7:30 in the evening.
Yeah,
so
help him out. A few more hearts.
Yep.
You could maybe a retweet or a reply, but...
And the reason we're on Twitter is because we always tweet out before we record. Sometimes we don't get a response. And this time we did. I was quite surprised we got a response to this one. And we write, as in this case, we're reviewing the 12 Tasks of Asterix with Atom Crowley and Felix Trench from Overcoats Wooden and other places, Victoriosity, Quid Pro Euro. Have you seen it? Tells you your thoughts for an on-air shout-out on Flixwatcher. Give us a 5-star rating. etc., etc.
Who's
And we're
getting the
there. We're
shout out?
listed. We're relevant people.
That's right.
We had
So rarely relevant.
Very relevant.
We did have one response. Would you like to take that, Felix, as this is your choice?
I see 2 responses there.
Well, it's...
So the top one is...
The other 2 are absolutely irrelevant to this conversation.
People weighed in on this, but...
So someone was excited. No, so we've got... Jenny Redmond, friend of mine, and your
friend
old
of
podcast.
ours. That's right. Yes, we worked together on the Story Etc. podcast. Gone too soon.
I know. As soon as this was announced, as she was going back home on the train, went, "Oh, I will watch this immediately."
Yes, excellent.
And she watched it on YouTube. Jenny says, "The best Asterix. I still say, leave them to me, leave them to me in Obelix voice. No one gets it.
Yeah.
Perfect viewing. Gets better with age." And it's in full on YouTube. I just realised, and I'm now watching it.
Well, Jenny, that's illegal, and also it's against the spirit of this podcast. So
And she did give this 5 stars. I think that... Yeah,
block her on Twitter now, because she's absolutely ruining it.
No, I'm going to follow her. That's what's going to happen.
Oh, fair enough.
How
Well,
dare
she's
you.
extremely
Jenny, as
wonderful.
you listen to, I've just followed you now.
You've just unfollowed her. Oh, Kobe. I think you already follow Jenny.
Now block her, like I said,
Oh,
because
sorry,
she's advocating illegal piracy.
Jenny's biography tells us that she is a pluviophile.
Likes
a lover
rain?
of rain.
Yes.
I'm also a pluviophile.
And she's got frizzy hair, which I would think would make her against rainy weather.
Well,
and the humidity.
Anti-pluve.
It doubles her
anti-pluve.
height, of course.
Of course it does, yes.
Right, guys, can you sign off by telling everyone who's listening where they can find you online and say goodbye in whichever
first,
language you choose?
I'm going to say our Flixwatcher catchphrase, Christmas ham, which we have to say in every episode.
Christmas ham!
Christmas ham, Felix. I'm Tom Crowley. You can find me on all the social media at a Tom Crowley or Atom Crowley, however you want to say it. There's an A at the start. I'd love it if you'd listen to my sketch comedy podcast, Crowley Time, available on all good podcatchers. It's all entirely written and performed and edited and composed by me because I'm insane and a glutton for punishment. And also, of course, listen to Wood and Overcoats, which I'm in with my very good friend Felix Trench. Felix, take it away. Christmas ham.
Christmas ham, Christmas ham. Here I am with my Christmas ham.
It's beautiful.
I feel that was going to be like the Little Drummer Boy kind of version.
I love that song.
Christmas ham.
That's the second
It's like
best Christmas carol.
There's like a prelude kind of conversation. You and Tom at piano. Felix, would you like some Christmas ham? Not tonight. I feel a bit hungry.
They told me
For Christmas ham, a new roast ham to see a Christmas ham. Where can they find you on social media?
They can find me on @Felix Trench. I'm on Twitter and Instagram, and that's. I'm also technically on Tumblr.
Are you?
Yeah,
is that a social media?
It is.
It is.
For now.
I tumble purely to promote my podcast, Quid Pro Euro, which I will be medium grateful if you listen to.
I think
So you need to listen to mine first, is what the
Yeah.
message is. Quid Pro
Yeah.
Euro is very,
Guys,
very good.
Well, listen to Crowley Time first, and
Thank
if
you.
you like that, maybe try one of the other podcasts.
Christmas ham.
Victoriosity and Wooden Overcoats both do
Victoriosity as
live
well.
shows, so do look for tickets. Go to often King's Place.
King's Place is where we've done a lot of our live shows,
Yeah.
actually. Yes, Victoriosity, if you're in the Oxford area, they do live performances there, so we may not be so far away from you. If you're in and near Oxford, look out at the old fire station.
Yeah, go see the Dead Secrets.
Go see the Dead Secrets as well. They do their weekly, I think, or monthly. I can't remember. It's very frequent.
The improv group that's run by the people who write
Victoriosity, that's right. There's a lot of crossover in the talent there, and they do a show called Hickory Dickory Murder in Oxford at the old fire station theatre, which is
plugging other people.
You mentioned Victoriosity, and I love those people, so I'm going to give them all the love I can. But yeah, go see them if you're in Oxford. If you're nearer to London, then come to King's Place and see Victoriosity, Wooden Overcoats, or anything else we might be doing.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks so much for coming on.
Christmas ham.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Enjoyed this episode of Flixwatcher podcast? Why not leave us a 5-star review on iTunes? You can also follow us at FlixWatcherPod on Twitter, and we're at FlixWatcher on Instagram. Thanks as always to the mighty people for their mighty, mighty tunes, and Ben from Rockwood Audio for his awesome editing skills. If you're looking to get your podcast edited as sweet as this, get in touch with Ben, and that's Rockwood, ROKK Wood Audio. Tell them Flixwatcher sent you.
just heard a Stripped Media production.